Fabulous. Okay, so I am Emily Norton. Do a variety of things across the rural space, particularly at the moment with an outfit called AgriFood4NetZero, and looking at transitioning the entire agri-food system to a sustainable future. I'm particularly interested in this conversation because we hear a lot of dominant voices as part of this debate, and what we did to bring forward different voices that are commonly not heard within the debate about the future of the countryside is to underdo some actual research. So to go out and speak to a lot of young people about what they felt the future of the countryside is. And the results have been sponsored by the University of West England. Thank you very much, Angelina, and also who else was part of McDonald's as well. We've got some McDonald's progressive young farmer on the panel here today. And these are just the top headlines. I apologise for it being quite small, but I think some of these results are really very fascinating because it speaks to breaking down some of the myths that we perceive that younger generations just don't care about the countryside. The polling results absolutely rejected that. And one that I was just trying to dig out that I think is very interesting, and all of these results are online. The one I think is very interesting is that it's something like 75% of the 1,000 young people who were interviewed for this could remember participating in some kind of outdoor education. And those who can remember participating in some kind of outdoor education, 90% of them said that it left them with a positive view of the countryside. So thinking back to that last session and the importance of education for allowing people to engage with and understand and have a better understanding of the countryside couldn't be more important. So I encourage you all to go and have a look at the results. They're all online. They've been press released today. There's some particularly interesting and relevant stuff in there. And as we know, young people love the countryside for the same reasons older generations love the countryside. It makes them happy, it makes them relaxed, and they're engaging with it more as they get older. And for lots of those reasons is so much here to be encouraged by in thinking through why we are doing this. Why are we fighting for a better future for the countryside? Okay, so let me, I think that's it. Yeah, okay, that's it. I've got a great panel of people here today who's all in some way or the other involved in thinking about being passionate for and advocating for the countryside and the role that they can play within it. So, guys, your job is to introduce yourself. I'm not going to introduce you for you. So, just in turn, as we go down the line, just in one sentence, just tell all of these people here who you are, and then it'd be really good if you could then give 3 words to describe what the countryside means to you personally. So, Harry, let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Harry Morley. I'm from Lincolnshire, and a proud Lincolnshire yellow belly. I'm also a student at Harper Adams, and I'm on my placement year at the moment with the Lakes Free Range Egg Company as part of the McDonald's Progressive Young Farmers Scheme. I'd say 3 words that describe what the countryside means to me is fascination, responsibility, and belonging.
Great. Lovely words. Right. Yeah, Jake, over to you.
Yeah, afternoon all. My name's Jake. So I'm a proud Derby lad, born and bred. The Peak District has always been a really special place for me, spending lots of time here, and it's often my escape to try and gather thoughts and figure out what's going on in life. So a really special place to me. For about a year now, I've been volunteering with the Peak District National Park Authority to try and give something back to a place that's really special to me. And most recently been really fortunate to form part of the Youth Impact Collective. So we're forming a new collective to try and help support the decisions made by the authority and capture youth and diverse views within that. 3 words to describe the countryside. I've gone for freedom, tranquility, and optimism.
Love that. Freedom. Freedom is a good word. Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah Corrin. I've been a youth volunteer with the Peak Park for almost 3 years now. I also grew up just down the road, so Chatsworth's a really special place to me, and it's great to be here today. I'm also part of the Youth Impact Collective with Jake, and that's been a really important part of volunteering with the Peak Park, is seeing how keen they are to get that youth representation in decision making and improving the access. In my spare time, I also work on the water and abandoned metal mines team, improving metal pollution in rivers. So that's really linked nicely into a lot of today's conversations too.
Fabulous, thanks. And Luke?
My name's Luke. I'm a representative from the North York Moors National Park, currently the acting chair of the Our Youth Voice group. I'm a graduate from Northumbria University in Newcastle. I studied environmental science with a passion in freshwater ecology and river water quality. For me, I'd say the North York Moors National Park for me feels like home, tranquility and peace.
A couple of you have used that word tranquility, which is such a beautiful word, right? We're going to talk a little bit about perceptions. We're going to do a little bit of myth busting, audience participation, please. And then we're going to go through to kind of some of the challenges as well, particularly around access and making sure that more people are included in these conversations. So let's kick it off with some perceptions and misconceptions. So let's start with you, Hannah. What are the biggest myths or stereotypes you think your peers have about rural areas and countryside life?
So the main one I've considered is that countryside is all the same. I think there's, it's either seen as rural, urban or countryside, and that's not the case at all. If we look at all the different national parks, the natural landscapes, they're so varied. So with that can translate into people really think, oh, there's just walking. And I think that the variation and each landscape has its own kind of challenges to access it, but often we just see, it's considered just vast green spaces. And where do you start with something that's so vast? So yeah, I think that's...
Yeah, that's really interesting. So kind of, how do you find you can break that down then in your conversations with them? Do you find that them thinking it's all the same is a barrier to people wanting to engage in it?
I think it can be for people that haven't engaged with it from a young age. And I think that actually more people are wanting to engage in the countryside, but if it's not something that you have grown up with, I was fortunate that I did. But if you haven't, where do you start? I think like Yvonne spoke about, having a pair of walking boots and, if it's raining, having the equipment, where do you start with that? And I think the perception that it is only walking, there is so much else to do. There's art, there's culture, there's all of the heritage that comes with that. And so if people think, oh, I'm not really much of a walker, therefore, why would I go to the countryside? It's just really... talking to people about what else is there, and that if they do want to get involved in something that they haven't before, that's also okay. But if they want to come and do something that they love and get involved in different cultural events, that's there too.
Yeah, thank you. Luke, what about you? What are the biggest myths you're finding, myths and stereotypes your peers and friends have about rural areas and what you do?
I would say, it could come like how people have grown up. People grow from different areas. I grew up with the national park, so I was always visiting family. So some people might think the national park isn't for them. They might not have that lifestyle or nature's for me. They might be interested in other topics, so they might not feel like they can be included in such opportunities.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Now, so Harry, to come to you, you mentioned belonging, I think, which is such an important thing to feel, that you belong somewhere, right? Do you think this kind of idea of like feeling part of the countryside is really important, and how can we help more people feel that?
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's important. I think for me, in terms of a career in agriculture, I'm not from a farming background, but I came into it through stories my grandfather used to tell me when he used to work on a farm. But I think I came into a career in agriculture because I really believe it's a career with a purpose. I think the main aspect that young people don't often understand about a career in agriculture is they have a misconception or a stereotype that it's just tractor driving or check shirts and wellies, but they don't often recognise that it's an evolving sector that's always embracing change and technology.
What was it about your grandfather's stories that really piqued your interest then? What was it that he was telling you?
Just how he used to tell them with, fondness of when he used to work on the farms.
Yeah, okay, so that's that kind of interest. Okay, which leads me into my first question, right? In these amazing polling that the team here have done, 83% of our young people said that the countryside was an important part of their heritage and was worth preserving. Who else finds that quite surprising? Are you all like, okay, I mean, I find that quite surprising that 83% of young people consider it as part of their heritage. It's actually quite encouraging though, right? Yeah? I think so. I think it's one of those things that, we kind of overlook and kind of think that people are just disregarding this, and it's something that kind of maybe older generations have kind of now the privilege to understand, and it's a culture point. But young people also are buying into this idea of heritage, which I think really speaks to that. Does this heritage point resonate with you? Is it something that you feel is part of your common heritage? Maybe.
I think certainly it's a massive part of my connection to the Peak District. For me personally, it's the Derwent Valley World Heritage Site and potentially, well, one of the birthplaces of the Industrial Revolution. Living in Derby, I'm a couple of minutes away from arguably the world's first modern industrial factory. The Peak District is scattered with millstones, which are a clear sign of the industrial history, and it's scattered with industry that has made the Peak District what it is today. It's built the communities that it is, and for me that is a big part of the attraction as well, going and learning about this history, before industrial times even. So I think it is a massive part, but I would echo that. It is great to hear that 83% say they recognise that connection to their heritage. Even, the term heritage I think isn't really talked about much within younger generations nowadays. So to be able to feel, for a lot of people to feel that connection to their past, I think is really fantastic.
Hannah, have you any reflections on that heritage point?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because actually what we often don't talk about in the heritage is the diversity that has come within those heritages. So, in the different communities, sort of bringing my work in from the mining areas, there have been lots of different people that have worked from there, and that's brought in different heritage. So even if you don't have 3 generations of family within that village, you might have families or communities, or the community that I feel as though I've built by volunteering with the Peak District National Park. We all build our own heritage, and I think nowadays heritage means something different to younger people, and it can be broader than initially people consider it. So yeah, I think
Yeah, that's super interesting. So I want to think now about access and inclusion, because this is clearly a massive issue for a lot of people. And the polling results confirm that. So when asked for the reasons why young people visit the countryside, 36% said they did so for their mental health, which is great, well-being and rest, 34% to connect with nature and watch wildlife, and 30% for their physical health and exercise. But the barriers that they are citing for not visiting the countryside included distance, not having enough time, transport costs. Also, not knowing which areas you're able to visit remains a significant hurdle, and just under half are put off by the lack of internet and phone signal. I think all adults, like of every age, are annoyed about the lack of internet and phone signal. But does this, Hannah, resonate for you? And then we'll come to all of you as well. What barriers, physical, social, emotional, have you faced when trying to access the countryside?
I want to recognise my privileged position, and I don't actually feel I've been very fortunate that I don't feel as though many of the barriers actually do apply to myself. But I've been part of the Youth Impact Collective, here to talk sort of as voices for those that aren't here today, and other areas that we've been involved in. And there are a lot of barriers that I don't think I knew that I was surprised by them, and I think that's why I'm really enjoying being part of this group. Racism is a barrier that has been brought up, and it's not something that I've had to deal with, but I think it's definitely something that really needs to be acknowledged. And I think with, the heritage aspects, that is something that we want to consider, because we are all so close to the countryside. Who is it that doesn't feel that their heritage, is related to it? I think also, like you mentioned, having the time constraints. We've spoken a lot about public transport, and for younger people, the time constraint, if you don't have a car, getting into the Peak District, there's a couple of key hubs and there's a few train routes, but if you want to go, somewhere off the beaten track, if you don't want to go to Bakewell or somewhere on the train line between Sheffield and Manchester, it is much harder. And there's those financial aspects that come with that. So if it's not something that you are already passionate about and are knowing it's worth making the effort for, like we've discussed, well-being in particular, then, how will you put the financial burden of public transport and time to getting into those spaces if you're not aware what it provides you?
Absolutely. Luke, what about you?
I could agree with that point as well, Emily, just what Hannah was saying about transport. I mean, I'm very fortunate as well to come to this event today. I've drove down, and without being able to drive, it would have been more harder for me to try and get all the way down from North Yorkshire to this event today. So being fortunate to be able to drive. Not all young people have that accessibility. These days, it does cost a lot of money to learn how to drive, lessons, expenses, etc., and to insure your car as well. So having that affordable and sustainable public transport is a good suggestion to get more young people involved with countryside and attending their national parks, and the fact that how long does it actually take a young person to get to their nearest national park. If it takes too long, it might not be an incentive to attend, and if there isn't any activities or any advertisement for what might be going on, there might not be the incentive for young people to actually get involved in such events.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jake, if I can just come to you on this. 84% of the people who responded to our poll, which I think is brilliant, thought that the countryside was welcoming. So 84%, the overwhelming majority thought that the countryside was welcoming. But I think there's a point that the 16% cannot be ignored. So 16% of people saying the countryside is not welcoming. So what could rural communities do to be more welcoming to everyone?
So, I mean, potentially slightly difficult for me to talk on because I've always felt welcomed in countryside communities. But as Hannah said, one of the really important aspects for us of the Youth Impact Collective is discussing these issues with diverse communities and those people who may be underrepresented, certainly in forums like this, so that we can be clear on why do they not feel welcome, and hopefully potentially we can then be working with the communities that might be inadvertently making them feel unwelcome. It might not be that people are intent on driving people away. It could be an unfortunate accident. So I think that's a big part of what we want to do with the Youth Impact Collective is try and understand, okay, well, we've got those 14%. What are the reasons for that? And then try and have some positive discussion on how we break that down. But like I said, I was surprised to hear, unfortunately, we heard firsthand from wider members that racism is still an issue within the Peak District. How we resolve that, I think there's a lot of different routes, but ultimately I think probably getting that deeper understanding of what is it that's causing people to feel unwelcome.
Harry, what about you? Have you got some thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, like you said, it's great to hear that so many people do feel welcome. But also there was another statistic you found on there. I think it was 54% feel welcome through social media.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think taking advantage of social media is important as well, because so many people of our age are constantly on social media. Yeah, yeah.
Are you finding good sources of inspiration on social media for how you interact with the countryside? Who would you cite as your main sources of influence?
Well, I suppose I listen to farming social media and so on Ollie Blogs, Tom Pemberton and so on.
Okay, okay. You stick to the mainstream.
Yeah.
What about you?
I was just going to say, I just want to add to that. I personally have found over the past year or so a positive change in the content that is on social media. Certainly, and originally towards general health and well-being, but I think now more of a shift towards the outdoors being a place that can provide that. There's one Instagram account I follow, Kilty McLean, and he basically talks a lot about the benefits of being outdoors, but he tells his story of how he went from being a roadman and very much a member of society that is completely opposite to what you'd associate with the countryside, but that actually, he made that transition. And I think having those positive role models to see that no matter where you may be in life as a young person, there's always that opportunity to get back to potentially a more wholesome or a different way of living your life and engaging with the natural environment.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, I'm going to be fairy godmother for a bit. I'm going to give you 10 million quid to spend on getting more young people from your world better access to the countryside, what would you spend it on? Luke, we'll come to you first. 10 million quid. I mean, it's a decent amount of money, right?
Yeah, it is a decent amount of money. I mean, there's been some great points today I've heard throughout this entire panel about what can be done. I mean, someone was talking about the new GCSE in natural history, and also just from my point of view, I think inspiration is a big key point for getting more young people involved with national parks and the countryside. I mean, someone was talking about, you know, that vital age gap of being maybe 8 to 10, getting children involved with nature then, getting them inspired is such an important thing. And just an example for myself, I got involved with the North York Moors through the national park, coming to my school and doing an assembly about what they were doing. They were offering their Young Ranger scheme, wanting to get more young people involved. And that's how I got involved with volunteering with them. And that's how I eventually helped set up their youth voice group. So for me personally, I think having that kind of money, getting national parks involved with schools, getting them involved with children, and even funding other incentives to get children inspired by nature, showing them the importance of how countryside can be so important for them is a good incentive.
I presume that you would have all been interested in doing a GCSE in natural history if it had been available. I mean, what I thought was interesting about the polling is that it's not just, you know, kids from every background, or young people from every background, I should say, and 75% of them said that they would have been interested in doing a GCSE in natural history. So it's like really broad and wide acceptance that this is great. So Hannah, anyway, 10 million quid, what would you spend it on?
I think Luke's probably covered it, to be honest.
Schools.
Yeah, I think schools are a really great place to start, and I think so many of the speakers today have echoed that. So Tony, when he was talking about the pilot projects, but he spoke about them not continuing, and it's having this sustainable continuation in schools, and it's not just about, you know, teaching in the classrooms, it's getting school, you know, kids out into nature, because I think, again, for all of us here, starting in nature in a young age has had that development, and sort of bringing that attitudes from as we were children up to adulthood. So yeah, I think that's really key.
Brilliant. Jake?
So my first million is going to the Youth Impact Collective.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. Self-interest.
No, but in all seriousness, I think as we've touched on there, you know, the education at that early age, I think we're all lucky that we were in environments in which we could truly appreciate nature, the countryside, and what it can do for us. I think so many people don't have that appreciation for the healing powers of nature, and well, just the beauty of it and how special a place it can be. So education, and then also the public transport links, because like I said, I think for people who don't have that overwhelming desire and knowledge of how great the outdoors is, it is a significant barrier to say I'm going to have to spend, you know, potentially £10 on public transport. It could take me 4 hours even from Derby to get into the Peak Districts both ways. So I think that is a significant barrier, especially for those people who don't yet appreciate the importance of the outdoors.
£80 train ticket that could take you anywhere to go with your bus ticket, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Harry?
Yeah, no, I agree with everyone else here. Engaging when kids are young. I also think connecting their food to the countryside as well.
Okay.
I mean, we all eat, and just engaging that this is where their food comes from. We see these lovely lambs outside, you know, getting that connection.
So is there anything on social media that you feel is good for that at the moment? Like, who is telling a good story to a broader audience? Because I know some of the social media influencers in the ag space are very good about talking to ag people, but broader kind of stories around food, or people who are really engaging kind of members of the public more broadly in where food has come from. Is there anybody that you follow who really inspires you?
I can't think of any. I think everyone who I follow engages mainly probably with farming.
Okay. But do you think those people are good about communicating to general consumers as well?
And they're pushing, you know, a good message.
Yeah, okay, interesting. So, audience, we've got a few minutes left. Have you got any burning questions that you want to... Oh my gosh, loads of questions. Loads of questions. Ed, let's go to Ed first at the front, and then we'll come round to Maxwell, and then we'll come round here, and then end up at the back.
Hi, Ed Eichen from the Ernest Cook Trust. So across this room, there's people responsible for, I think, probably hundreds of thousands of acres. What thoughts do you have around the sort of decision-making that young people could bring into those organisations? And if an organisation wants to welcome a young person in as a decision-maker, how do they do it successfully?
Who wants to go? Yeah.
Well, I'd say from your point of view, like having that access to that kind of land, it is a good opportunity to, just get involved young people, ask for their thoughts and opinions on what can be done with that land. I mean, for me, for example, with the national park, we do offer incentives, or we can do tree planting, offer just different ways of how young people can get involved with the national park. But, it's definitely important from that point of planning perspective, getting everyone involved, your local community, young people of all ages. If you get them all involved, have their opinions first, have their voice heard, is a good incentive to understand of what could be done with that land.
How should they be communicating this? I mean, you might be putting it in your newsletter, for example, but a future generation is going to be, how do they want to be accessing knowledge about those opportunities?
Well, I'd say a variety of ways can be used. Obviously, young people, including myself and others, do use social media platforms as a way of finding out opportunities, for example. So I'd say a blend of, if you're wanting young people to get involved, I'd say using social media, the popular social media platforms, is a good way to get across. But also, if children are still in school, for example, having those presentations done at school, in assemblies, get that points across to, this is opportunities which are coming up. They could inspire them to get involved, like how the National Park inspired me to get involved with volunteering in the first place.
Great, let's move on. Next question. At the front here, blue shirt.
Thanks, Phil Mulligan from Peak District National Park. I just want to start by thanking Jake and Hannah for helping us with our Youth Impact Collective and the others who've been involved. It's been great working with you, really grateful for the time you're giving us. Just picking up on a question that was asked earlier, in 5 years' time, what do you think is going to be different in the National Park or the countryside from all the work that Youth Impact Collectives or Youth Voices can achieve?
Jake, should we come to you first?
So I'd like to think there's a lot more people truly engaging with the national park beyond using it as a place that we maybe go for weekends. There's been a lot of talk of skills development and potentially skills that are being lost over time. Well, the specific topic was on herbal remedies and that kind of things. I really hope that we can start to pass down some knowledge from generations, and that younger generations can start to holistically use the national parks and for more and more, and that also the younger generations are helping to self-promote the wonderful things that are happening within the national park. I would like to think that we have a better solution on public transport, or at least there's some route to try and help younger people access lower cost public transport into the peaks. And one final thing is I'd love to see more integration with the local universities. The Peak District in particular, 2 major universities in Manchester, 2 major universities in Sheffield, Derby of course as well. So hopefully some more integration with universities and using them as a really effective way to get younger people into the national park.
Thank you. Hannah, do you want to be your turn?
Sorry, could I ask you to summarise again, just because it was a longer question?
So, where you want things to be in 5 years' time?
I think there's a lot we can do in 5 years. I think the main thing that I'd like to see is improved diversity. I think that's really key. You spoke about the decision making. Again, looking at as a panel, we aren't diverse, and I think that is something that's key. Because that will impact the decisions that need making. So if taking on different decisions, that's something that we are in the early stages of the Youth Impact Collective doing, but that's one of our key things, is to talk to diverse groups. So, we're not just an echo chamber, we're bringing in perspectives from, the full national population. I think I would also like to see progression of jobs and housing in the national park. It's something that we've spoken about a lot, and the access of that, I think, within decision making, we've got the training academy at the Peak District National Park at the moment, but it's having an understanding of the progression of how that can then develop once someone's got that role. When they come to the end of that, what happens next, and what other options are there after the training academy? Where can these roles develop?
Yeah, interesting. And so, Harry, just to think about sort of a slightly broader perspective of the agricultural industry, are you optimistic? Clearly, there's a lot of negativity around at the moment, but are you optimistic for 5 years' time?
Yeah, I'm optimistic in terms of me having a career in agriculture and all the exciting things that are going on.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, great. Maxwell?
Yeah, is it on? Yeah, it's good to see Jake and his, crew up there, who I spoke to some time back. I was invited to speak to you, and it's great to have you here. I think access to countryside is not about benevolence. It's about social justice. It's about governance and representation. And the history of the English countryside have never always, for years now, been representative at all. So it's great that we're seeing your voices on board. I would have loved your panel to more diverse, some Black and minoritized individuals there who can talk about their lived experience. But when we talk about access, it's not just getting people out into the countryside. It's about our shared heritage. Because, this space we are, there's a lot of Black history here. Enslaved people contributed to this country. The soldiers who fought in the First and Second World War. There's a lot of history that Black and minoritized people can get connected to. But if that shared heritage is not told, and we just talk about access to a countryside, just getting people out for walks and recreation and leisure, it doesn't address the issue of governance and representation. So it's good to see you guys and try to do well to get more Black and minoritized young people getting involved. Otherwise, in future, it's going to be the same way like we see today here. We want to see it more diverse, just like biodiversity.
We need to make sure those stories are told, right? So we actually understand what their shared cultural
We need those stories told.
Yeah, totally.
If you read the colonial countryside, there's a lot of stories that are told, and we need those stories told and shared.
Yeah,
that's what access to countryside should be about.
Thank you. Very strong point. Let's come here, lady at the, here in the middle with her hand up. Somebody's running towards you, slowly. Yep, keep going. There you go, well done.
Thanks, everyone. It's amazing to hear you so supportive of nature education. It's fantastic. But I wanted to ask you how much eco-anxiety plays into your generation. I mean, you hear, it must be a very anxious world that you live in. Is that a barrier as well?
Who wants to answer that? Yeah?
I wouldn't say it's quite a barrier, but yes, from my perspective, I do fear for, well, in a sense of what climate change will bring for everyone, really, not just the national parks, but for everyone's livelihoods, just how it will change our lives, how we will have to adapt. But just on the point, it's something which we all need to tackle, we all need to collaborate on and communicate together and work on to try and see how we can all either adapt to climate change or what measures we can do. But yeah, it's something which it can cause anxiety, like how is this habitat going to change? How is like losing our biodiversity going to affect us in the long term? Because if, as a society, we are always going to keep growing. It's an event. It's always going to happen. But how are we going to adapt to also include nature in it as well? We're both interlinked in a sense. Without nature, we cannot live as well. So how we can get nature involved in how we build our houses, how we grow our crops, etc. It's something which needs to really be looked into, in my opinion.
Thank you. Hannah, did you want to say anything? No, that's okay. Yeah.
So I think I'd add to that. I think I am concerned slightly between the disconnect between kind of eco-anxiety, which is something I can certainly associate with. You know, it's a big cause of concern for myself personally. And the Peak District is one of the places I come to step away from the world of doom and gloom and step back into that optimism and kind of be reminded of the natural beauty. Of course, there's the twinge of, you know, I'm appreciating this natural beauty, but potentially we're on a path to making things worse. But I mean, it concerns me that there's people of my generation out there that don't have access to these incredible outdoor spaces and the incredible power they have to, certainly for myself, to ease those worries. And, you know, I don't think I ever leave a day in the peaks without feeling more positive about the situation that's going on. So I think, like I say, my concern is potentially there's not enough young people making use of the incredible tool that is the countryside to overcome some of these fears.
Brilliant. We're just going to start rounding things up now. So I wanted to come to you because you're all involved in some way in a programme with a corporate sponsor of some description or the other. And I wanted you just to be able to reflect on how important that program is for giving you the encouragement for your future in the countryside, and how would you encourage more people to get involved? So, Harry, let's start with you. Say a little bit about the McDonald's program that you're on and what you would do to encourage more people to take part.
Yeah, so the McDonald's Progressive Young Farmer Scheme has been massively important to encourage me for the future. What McDonald's like to do is put you into a sector that you don't previously have knowledge of, which can be quite uncomfortable at first, but it definitely gets you really engaged and asking lots of questions. So before I didn't have any experience of the poultry sector or the egg sector, but now I think I want to go into the egg sector after, so I think that gives an impact of the encouragement it's had on me. Yeah, so throughout the year we've been able to see the whole supply chain and also different ancillary sectors, whether that's marketing, transport, packaging, and yeah, and to come to events like this.
Brilliant. Yeah, well, thank you very much for coming, Jake.
Yeah, so I think as a volunteer with the Peak District National Park Authority, I think there's a few key things really with regards to my future. So first of all, it's great to spend time alongside like-minded young people. It really is a great thing because you can, you know, in other scenarios be surrounded by people that very much don't share the same views, and sometimes the polar opposite, which can be a bit down-putting, but always, you know, the opportunity to be around like-minded young people is always a very positive thing looking forward. I think we're really lucky to have a really good team within the authority that are focused on trying to make the experience worthwhile for us. You know, we are volunteers. We give our time to do this, and so there is a recognition of giving something back. I think the fact that we get to be here today among so many incredible people that are focused on doing the right thing for the countryside is brilliant, but also the opportunity to engage in some training and speak with wider people in the organisation. So it's been brilliant for me, gives me optimism for the future, but also is helping build some of those skills and knowledge relevant to a career in the industry.
Luke, say a little bit about your programme as well.
Yeah, just so I'm a volunteer with the North York Moors National Park, and obviously just with being part of our Youth Voice group, it's just, I find it so important just being part of it. It's giving that opportunity to young people to get involved with the national park, and just, I've always been that person who likes to be involved in having that incentive and trying to get more young people involved with nature and just the national park in general. And just having that opportunity, like even having the opportunity to come to this amazing event today, without working with the national park, I wouldn't have even known this event was happening today. And also just from like a university background as well, doing my environmental science degree, it gave me so many opportunities to learn about what kind of stuff happens in the world and this kinds of events and what different environmental sectors everyone is from.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, you're holding the mic. The audience is listening to you. You've got one message to give all of these people who are empowered to make decisions about the future of the countryside. What's it going to be?
I would say, in a future sense, I feel like if we're going to tackle climate change and other environmental issues, I feel the need, just the support for national parks, and that, just in the sense the funding. If we can't fund national parks like sustainably, for example, then it's going to cause such like a big impact of events, because so many people rely on national parks as a space to distress from their work lives, to take their families for nice days out, to make amazing memories.
Yeah, love it. Hannah?
I would say ask for people's opinions. Don't just put out a poll or a consultation page and say, well, it's there, you've got 2 weeks. Actually go out if you want to diversify your opinions and have a look at new perspectives to future-proof your ideas. Go out and ask for them. Ask for maybe the opinions you don't want to hear. Go and ask young people and go and find them, because at the end of the day, whilst it's great to get involved in, you will also be benefiting. So just ask.
Right, Jake?
So for me, I think it's about effective engagement with early years. We've talked a lot about those first 10 years being really keen in developing habits and I guess underlying values. For me, I get a lot of inspiration from working with younger generations and trying to embed the same values and feelings that we all have in this room, because ultimately, you know, they're going to be the ones that continue the work. So I think effective engagement with young people, instilling those values so that they within their everyday lives can hopefully be trying to support the wider cause.
Brilliant. And Harry, your closing message to this audience of decision makers?
Oh, that's difficult. No, I think mine's similar to yours. It's, yeah, just keep investing in young people. I think often the most valuable thing you can give to young people is your knowledge and your time. I think keep offering mentorship and your time and your knowledge. Brilliant. Okay, great. Please join me in thanking this amazing panel of young people who've pushed themselves to do this. Thank you to you all. Handing over now to Nick and Julian to close things up for us. Guys, please do join me off stage.
Thank you very much, everybody. There's been lots of talking, lots of debate today, so I'll be brief. I think my main thanks is to the speakers and also to everybody in this room for the spirit of the day. It's been a positive coming together that hasn't shied away from challenges, from taxation to nature to access, but it's kept the ambition and it's kept the spirit of what can be done. We've looked forward to progress rather than retreated from it, and that's very important. I think that also, that spirit of coming together, is very much the point of the day. We aren't here to agree a single set of policy agendas. We have the declaration, which I hope if you haven't signed it, you will sign, a statement of the importance of the countryside for the many, many things it can do to make our country and our society stronger. But it's the feeling that people who've come together, who haven't always talked, who haven't always met, who've engaged with each other in a positive spirit. We've seen it from ministers, we've seen it from the leaders of NGOs, and we've seen it from everybody in this room. And that's been a really great thing, and it's an unusual thing, perhaps, in our society today, when we have so many forces and processes which can pull us apart. There's many things that I've learnt today. One of my takeaways, apart from Michael Gove dressed as a gorilla, is his reference to the need for a chorus or a choir, or at least some kind of tune. We don't all have to have the same notes. Not everybody's going to agree on everything, but there needs to be a bit of shared direction, a bit of shared ambition. If we don't have that, the story will get lost in politics, and it will get lost in the country today as well. And from that, we're very grateful to have had Grounded with us today, doing some research on what we've said, on some of the work at the tables. And it's come up with perhaps a point that we know, but it's important to be reminded of, which is it's complicated and it's contested. There isn't a single, simple countryside answer. They all seem to begin in C. But it also needs to be collaborative. And it's easy to say that, it's hard to do. And I think we have done some of that today. So I'm very proud to have been part of it. I've listened to all sorts of bits of debate. Grounded's research has shown us the complexity. People at the tables have had different kinds of discussions in different places. It's shown, however, that if you put people together to face them with an issue, we can start to talk about it. I think one thing that came out strongly, including from that excellent session on health in the NHS, is the need for evidence. It's not enough for us just to say the countryside is a good thing, nature is a good thing, we should all pay for it. We heard that too, talking about some of the farm support. The Minister, Daniel Zagner, told us he needs evidence to make the case to the Treasury, and we need to help do that. In return, DEFRA need to help use the evidence they have. There was a very strong point about soil research, which is taking place and not being used. So we need to prove, not just through emotion and through hope, but through facts, the case which we know we can do. Another point that came out from Grounded's work we've just been hearing is the role of young people. And I found that both a wonderful conversation and also the polling linked to it incredibly uplifting, because it shows it matters to people. We aren't facing a lack of interest. We're facing a need and a hunger and an ambition. We're there, hopefully, to respond to that. So that's very, very strong as well. And we need people rooted locally to help make this happen. This isn't going to be done by the government or just by national NGOs, so they can play a part. We had a lot of encouraging references there to national parks and national landscapes. I'm very proud of that. We can do more. We need the bodies, we need the organisations to help us do that. Chatsworth itself is a very, very important part of that. You need these anchor points to generate that excitement, to get people involved. So I'm proud to have been part of today. I'm really grateful to everybody for coming along. I'm going to hand over to my co-chair, Nick, just to finish off. But thank you again, and good luck on your travels home.
Thanks, Julian. Before I do the wind-up, does anyone have any burning comments that they'd like to make, any reflections on the day? Now's your opportunity. But it's not your only opportunity, because if a hand isn't going to flash up, then we will send around a survey to everyone to ask you to feedback your thoughts and your suggestions for what we might do going forward. We have developed this event in our third year by expanding it slightly, not by having a two-day conference, but by offering events the day before. And we're very grateful to those that laid on the tours, and a number of you took up that opportunity. We'd love feedback on that, but also should we be doing more of that and really making the most of the fact that we have the great privilege of coming to some very special places. We'd like to think a bit about whether we can do things in between an annual event. Future Countryside, I think, shouldn't just be one annual conference, although I hope it will become now established as an annual Countryside conference. There wasn't one before. I think we've helped to fill that space and are starting to establish ourselves. But are there things we could do? Are there convenings we could do or activities we could do in between an annual event? And do you have any thoughts about the nature of an annual event? What you'd like to see more of, less of? We really would like to have your feedback in the spirit of the kind of discussion and gathering that we have felt today. Thoughts about the agenda for a future event, and indeed speakers. If you have any ideas for speakers, I think one of the strengths of the events that we've had, including today, has been to have what you might call left field or right field speakers. People who perhaps are unusual or unexpected and therefore had interesting things to say. And we are very much in the market for ideas about who those should be. When we began on our first event at Hatfield and then at Sion, I think a common sentiment was, yes, but how are you going to take this forward? What is the purpose of this gathering? You've got people together, now what are you going to do? And it was almost an invitation to say more, to come up with a set of policies. And I think we need to partially resist that. We have come up with the declaration, and thank you to everyone who has signed that, and we will seek to promote that now. But I don't think we do substitute for all the many organisations and expertise that is in this room who have the policy ideas and the locus to be advancing them. I think the answer to the question, what is Future Countryside for, is that we are a place where we can meet together, gather, converse, share ideas, and that is a value in itself. The very fact that we are here together and having this conversation in a positive way, hearing diverse points of view, networking, I think that is of sufficient value without seeking this initiative to be something else. But again, we are open to ideas about that. And if people feel that there is a way that we could take this on, then we are certainly very keen to hear it. I think, though, that the sentiment that I have, and I'm sure that it's shared by Julian, is that we really want to continue with this. That there is a kind of energy and enthusiasm in the room. And if we have the opportunity, the privilege to be able to do this another year and in between, then we really would like to.